he was a provocateur. All his life, he wanted to provoke, create trouble, and make a splash. And he was never really in the business of seeking power for himself or running the country.
And Jean-Marie Le Pen, the founder of the hard right party, the Front National, the National Front, died today at the age of 96. The father of Marine Le Pen had been in a care facility for several weeks and died at midday, surrounded by his loved ones, according to his family. Charles Bremner, Paris correspondent for The Times, is on the line. Charles, just give us your thoughts on the impact, the importance of Jean-Marie Le Pen.
Well, this is a big moment in French political history, although the Élysée Palace and the left-wing parties are playing it down. Jean-Marie Le Pen dominated, created the French hard right, or the far right, as it has been called until recently, 53 years ago, when he pulled together a bunch of fragmented far right pro-Nazi parties and created the National Front, and the family business is continuing. Marine Le Pen, his daughter, inherited it in 2011. She cut herself off a bit from her father, but she's still very much in the same tradition. So it really is a dynasty, a political dynasty in a way that France has not had in the 20th century,
right.
Or 21st.
Well, Charles, tell us a little bit more about that relationship then in particular. I mean, Jean-Marie Le Pen, he fell out drastically with two of his daughters, including Marine Le Pen, who's such a leading light now in the National Rally, the French right-wing party. She was important in kicking him out of the party. So she marked a change from the ways of her father in the most dramatic way.
Yes, it was not as dramatic as all that. She actually maintained fairly close relations with her father off the stage, but she did make a big play of cutting herself off from the racist, very, very anti-Semitic and hostile and pro-collaboration Nazi background of her father. This is all part of her plan to detoxify the party, and it has been fairly successful.
And of Jean-Marie Le Pen's own history, his politics, his background. He was an unashamed racist, wasn't he? He was convicted a number of times of racism-related offences, the language that he used, the way that he conducted himself, and that did not stop him rising to a pretty prominent position in French politics. Obviously not to the pinnacle, but in a famous French presidential election, he did pretty well.
Yes, in 2002, the whole world was stunned when he suddenly pulled from the background into the second place in the runoff of the presidential election against Jacques Chirac. That was the big moment. There were demonstrations across France against him, and he was badly defeated. At the time, in fact, people thought, and he himself admitted, he didn't really want to win. He was himself surprised. He was a provocateur. All his life, he wanted to provoke, create trouble, and make a splash. And he was never really in the business of seeking power for himself or running the country.
No. Was he ever considered a serious contender for the highest possible office? He did very well in that famous French election in the first round of voting. In the second, the voters came together from all parts of the political spectrum to knock him back. Was he considered someone who was never destined for the highest levels, more that he represented a strain of opinion in France?
Yes, he remained a pariah throughout his life. Even in 2002, when he got 17% in the first round, he was very much in the minority and was an outcast. Marine Le Pen has managed to remedy that somewhat, but if you remember this last summer's elections, the parties of left and right gathered together to form a bloc to prevent her winning the parliamentary elections. So the old fence against the far right and hard right is still there.
Yeah, and before we finish this conversation, I want to come back to where we are now in that relationship between the far-right politics and the French electorate as a whole. But just another word on the life of Jean-Marie Le Pen, because his relationship with his wife was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, a massive falling out. She posed nude. She modelled nude as a kind of rebuke to him at one point.
That was when I first served as Times correspondent in Paris, and way back in 91. He threw his wife out, essentially, and accusing her of being a housekeeper. She retaliated by dressing up, or not dressing up, by taking all her clothes off and putting on a maid's apron and posed naked in Playboy magazine to humiliate him. That was the most spectacular of all his run-ins with with his family and his wives. He's of course remarried, and he's been stably married again since for the last 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, fascinating story. Just lastly, Charles, in your own judgment, do you yourself believe that we will see, we could very well see, Jean-Marie Le Pen's daughter, Marine Le Pen, achieve, and her party, the successor to the National Front, the National Rally, achieve what her father never managed to do?
Well, until very recently, I would have said no, because she's still unacceptable to a majority of the French population by all the polls. But the nature of the French elections means that she does have a chance now, and she has succeeded in detoxifying the party to some extent, and it now enjoys about 30% of support in the country. And it is the biggest party in parliament at the moment because of last summer's election. So all bets are off, as they say. It is quite possible that in 2027 she could win. But there is a big but. She is running the risk of being disqualified from all public office in April, when there's a verdict in the trial that she went through in November, December, for allegedly taking European parliamentary funds for her party.
All right. Charles Bremner, Paris correspondent for The Times, thank you so much for joining us to share your thoughts.
A priori, il va se retourner un moment quand même.
Je vois que il y a Jeanne en majesté sur mon bureau.
Qui est donc ce président ?